Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. It's been a pretty busy week guys. We had the Infinite Forbidden sneak peeks, and then we're preparing for the NAWCQ next weekend. I also had Pokemon Go Fest this past weekend, and then the new Eminem album dropped, so I've been listening to that on repeat. The last 4 days has been really crazy for me. Anyways, I will be going again to do the blog coverage for Konami, so if you guys do see me at the NAWCQ, come say hi. It'd be really cool to meet some new faces that I haven't met before. But yeah, we're going over a couple things here today on Market Watch. Before we hit the NAWCQ, just a few things that are happening all over the market that we're seeing. This is probably going to be our last episode until after Nationals, so let's get started. So first off, of course, we are talking about Fiend Engraver. Now we have confirmation that there's no ban list until the end of August, so after the NAWCQ, but possibly not until after YCS Sacramento as well. With that, everyone has been scrambling to pick up the newest Chase Secret Rare from the Infinite Forbidden, a key 3 of that will be an important part of the best engine in the game for the foreseeable future, Fiend Engraver. Now that said, I fully expect Beatrice to be hit on the next ban list, but even then I still think that the Fiendsmith engine will be extremely meta relevant. Now within the last few days, we've seen Engraver go from an already pretty high $100 each to an insane $150 each on TCG Player. The thing here is though, that I don't want you guys to overreact to this crazy price. I definitely think it's an overreaction to the set coming out the week before Nationals, and we definitely have people that are trying to take advantage of the situation, where they're buying out the card at $100 or $120 and trying to flip them right before Nationals for a profit. I definitely expect this card to come back down afterwards though. Obviously the extent to which it crashes is going to depend on the ban list. Personally, I feel like anywhere from $80 to $100 each is pretty reasonable for this card, especially since it's going to be a key engine piece that a lot of decks are going to be able to use moving forward. If you guys do have this card and you don't need it or you aren't going to Nationals, I'd definitely consider moving it within the next week or two for that $150 before the prices come back down. The Infinite Forbidden is going to be one of the sets that everyone is looking to open before Nationals and right after, so you'll want to sell this card before everyone's copies get listed to the market after Nationals and bring the prices crashing back down. Up next, we have Crimson Dragon. Now this is a card that's gotten a decent amount of hype over the last year or so. It cheats out a big level 12 synchro monster, so most often decks will use it to cheat out either King Calamity or Cosmic Blazar Dragon, both of which are extremely powerful monsters that would otherwise be very difficult to summon. Historically, the two decks that can make use of this card are Centurion and Manadeum, both decks that are annoying because of their ability to abuse this card, but despite that, it was never quite enough to make either of them a top tier meta contender. Because of this, Crimson Dragon has always been seen as a card with niche applications. It's good, but it's not like the deck really dominated or anything like that, and as a result the card was never seeing very much top tier play. Crimson Dragon has historically sat around the $12 to $15 mark, with a bit of fluctuation depending on how well Centurion was doing that format versus how likely it was that King Calamity would get banned, and half the reason to use this card would now be gone. Now, however, the new White Forest deck that is a new synchro theme coming in the Infinite Forbidden is able to play this card, and there's a couple of different variations running around. I believe some of them use the toy cards from Terminal Revenge, as well as different runic cards as well, and then some run a small Centurion package. With that, players are picking up Crimson Dragons, which has caused the original Secret Rares to jump in price to between $20 and $25 each. This card just came out in Duelist Nexus, which was about a year ago, so it is expected to be reprinted in the 2024 tins, which are only a couple of months away. The card might be seeing a bit of hype for the couple of big events before that, but ultimately I don't think that the deck will be nearly as viable as Fiendsmith Snake Eye, so I'd probably look to sell off Crimson Dragons while they're at their all-time high. So this card is a fun one. It's called Vernisylph of the Flourishing Hills. So the Vernisylph monsters are an earth-based theme that never really got any sort of attention at all. They're actually pretty generic earth support, though only for dedicated earth strategies, as a lot of the effects will lock you into earth effects for the rest of the turn. Vernisylph of the Flourishing Hills is a neat card. You discard it and a monster to search for another Vernisylph, then you can special summon an earth monster out of your graveyard. Now this card is currently seeing some hype because of the Mimigul strategy, which is a brand new TCG exclusive archetype being introduced in the Infinite Forbidden. Personally, I really love the archetype. I'm definitely going to try to build it because they look like they're tunes and they have like this really unique playstyle. Flourishing Hills is cool because it lets you special summon an earth monster, so for Mimigools it lets you get an extra monster onto the field easily so that you can set up a Link or Xyz play. Now historically, this card was only $1 or $2, but with different YouTubers showing off this card alongside the Mimighoul cards in replay videos and whatnot, this card has shot up to $8 per copy. It was only ever printed in Power of the Elements, which had that unlimited run, not too many people really opened it, and then only had a few cards reprinted in last year's tins. Now theoretically this should be in the tins for this year, since Konami did confirm that some Power of the Elements cards will be in there, so expect this price to cool down after a couple of months. Definitely an interesting card to dig up out of your bulk, or to try and offload for some free value before that reprint comes. Now one other card related to the Mimighouls here, this one is called Sol and Luna. Now this card is a quick play spell card that requires you to target a monster on each player's side of the field, and then flip those monsters either face up or face down depending on their original position. So I remember when this card first came out, it had a cool idea, but it just seems so horrible to try and use something that would proc when you flip a monster face up in today's game. And I swear, when Tom and I were opening Rarity Collection 2 with our friends, the joke we were making was about how Sol and Luna was definitely the worst card to be reprinted in the set. Now, however, it does sort of make sense. I can definitely see how this card would be really useful in Mimighoul, since you can use it even when you're going first, since you can special summon a monster to your opponent's side of the field, and then use Sol and Luna to flip this card face up. Now that said, this card was reprinted in a rarity collection, so you can play this card in like 6 different rarities that are all going to be under $1 each. However, the quarter century rare version specifically was targeted for a buyout, as it is the card's highest rarity printing. It was literally only $1 or $2, and it was really only worth that because it's still a quarter century secret rare, but that high rarity printing is now going to cost you around $6 to $8. We don't yet know what the ideal Mimighoul deck is going to look like yet. It'll probably be some time before we actually get to see it top anything, but from what I saw of the lists online and like the replay videos, none of those lists people built were running a copy of this. Only time is going to tell, but for now I'd probably look to move the quarter century versions while they are hyped up and play with something like the secret rares or the collector's rares, which still look pretty nice but are much more affordable. On to the next one, we have Ritual Beast Tamer Zephyrampilica. So sometimes I forget about these cards, but there's a couple of different archetypes that were tied in with the Zephyr theme that theoretically work with both archetypes. Zephyrampilica is a pretty simple monster. When it's normal or pendulum summoned, you can special summon a Ritual Beast monster from your graveyard, but it's destroyed during the end phase. Now this is cool because it's another way to get 2 monsters onto the field, which is what Ritual Beasts need in order to perform their combos. The sad part is that it summons from the graveyard, so it's a bit more difficult to use. It's definitely a useful card later on in the game when you're down on resources, but this probably isn't something that you want in your opening hand. Now from what I've seen, about half of the lists were playing this card as a one-of online, while the other half chose to omit this card completely. Now I'm not a big Ritual Beast guy, so I can't tell you from my own experience. It's just going to have to be something that you playtest with and see if you like having access to. Now with this card, it has a rare printing from a core set, which is pretty cheap, under $1. However, its one holo printing is as a super rare from the side set Pendulum Evolution, which in my opinion is one of the most forgettable sets that was ever made. This card was basically bulk, but it's now going to cost you around $5 each, so definitely see if you have this card lying around in your bulk so that you can offload it while it's hyped up. Moving on, we have True Light. Now this is a continuous trap card that is support for the Blue Eyes theme. It stops your opponent from targeting Blue Eyes White Dragon with card effects, and it grants a way to either summon a Blue Eyes from your hand or graveyard, or search for a spell or trap from your deck that lists Blue Eyes White Dragon in its text with a different name from other cards that you control and are in your graveyard. Overall, this card is pretty forgettable since it's a trap card and it's slow, and also Blue Eyes isn't particularly competitive. However, we have a new structure deck coming out in the OCG, and with the first few cards revealed, there's a new card that activates True Light directly from your deck. That's a big speed up for the strategy, and while it's probably still not going to be tier 1 or anything like that, it definitely helps it out. Now that said, True Light is probably only going to be a one-of, and it should be reprinted in the structure deck itself if it's going to explicitly be mentioned on one of the new cards. However, it'll probably be just a common, so players are looking to pick up the original ultra rares now since that is the highest rarity. These used to basically be a bulk holo, but they're now a solid $2 each, so still a bit of money if you can move a decent enough quantity of them. Definitely consider digging these up out of your bulk and either move them now for some value or try to hold on to them so that you can move them to a really dedicated Blue Eyes player when that structure deck does eventually come out here in the TCG. And finally, the last card for today is Angel Statue Azeron. So in the Infinite Forbidden, we have a new generic Link 2 monster called Silhouette Rabbit, which searches for continuous traps that summon themselves as monsters. Azeron is definitely one of the best cards that you can search for, bringing itself out as a light fairy monster that can negate an opponent's special summon that does not start a chain by sending this card to the graveyard. Now, if this card happens to get destroyed by battle, you do also get to destroy the monster that destroyed it as well, which is a neat little bonus that may come up. Now, this is a card that we've known about for a little while here on Market Watch, as we've known about the Rabbit for a while as well, but the last time we talked about this card, it was still at 50 cents each for the super rares from Blazing Vortex. Now, however, the card is getting some actual attention since the Rabbit is here, and we see this card currently sitting at $2 to $3 each on TCG Player. Fortunately, this card did get a common printing in one of the tins, and that version hasn't moved at all, which is good if you're just looking to use the card and play it. However, as an old super rare, this is a card that was probably really easy to overlook and just throw into your holo bulk. So if you can, it's definitely worth digging up and seeing if you can move it at your locals while players are looking for ways to use the new cards. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. I think that the Infinite Forbidden coming out literally the week of the NAWCQ is definitely crazy. We're going to see some really interesting things happening with the prices of cards from the Infinite Forbidden over the next couple of weeks, because there's going to be this huge fluctuation of people buying it, and everyone's going to be wanting so much for their cards ahead of the NAWCQ, but then afterwards I feel like the prices are going to tank really hard. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of what the aftermath is, as well as how having that event and then knowing that we have the ban list at the end of August coming as well is all going to affect the market. But best of luck to all of you guys at the NAWCQ. Hopefully I get to say that to some of you guys in person if you are attending in Austin next weekend. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.